Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden, or to the wilderness in my back, which is actually not my garden, because today I'm taking you with me to the last layer of the slope because I want to plant a little bit. It is the first really hot day of the year today, by the way. It's 29 degrees Celsius, so it would be the perfect day to head for the beaches. And maybe I'm still going to do it later on today, but before that happens, I want to do a little lovely planting with you because my obsession with hydrangeas that I apparently developed this year kind of continues. I went to the garden center and I couldn't help myself but to buy two beautiful hydrangeas. They are on the bluish side of the color spectrum, and I think it is a very intriguing video if you want to grow blue hydrangeas as well, because there is a little trick to it to keep those varieties continue flowering blue. Because some of you might experience, you go to the garden center, you buy a blue hydrangea, you put it into the ground, and then when it comes back the next year, suddenly it is pink, and there is a quite simple reason for it. So what I want to do first is I just want to take you with me here on this entire slope a little bit, give you a little tour, show you how the situation is right now, show you where I want to plant, show you the two varieties that I bought, and then give you some information on how to plant them to make sure that your hydrangeas continue blooming blue for the years to come. So hope you are excited to join me in my garden today. I'm standing with you on the third layer of this slope, and I think things really start kicking in with a lot of growth and they look really beautiful. All those videos that I shared with you earlier on in the year, I think now you finally get to see that it was worth really spending the time here and just continue planting a lot of annuals and tender plants. I have some perennials as well, so the slope in theory is my experimental cut flower garden and pretty much an extension to the garden, to the upper garden that is up there. So we are on top of a dike here at the south coast of the Baltic Sea. And at the back of the garden, that is the end of the dike. And what I did in the past year is I built all these terraces here. And just in case, if this is the first time you watch a video of mine, this ugly black landscape situation is going to change bit by bit because I started masking it with these black fences, but I have so much of it to mask that this is going to be quite a project for the next year, I suppose. But what I want to show you, quite intriguing, I planted a lot of petunias here, and look at these beautiful, really dark, rich purple color. Some of them started to have like white spots, and I'm really not sure what the situation is. Why are they doing that? I mean, as always, I buy these without a label, so I have no idea what I actually have here, but well, it is quite intriguing. I mean, if it would really bother me, I could just snip them off really fast, but let's see how they're going to continue. I'll continue walking with you here. What I have, this is something where some people might think it's crazy, but I put a clematis here, and I sometimes like when a clematis kind of just like works a little bit as a ground cover, and it just like grows a little bit over the ground here, and clearly it works because it starts to flower, it produces more and more flower buds, it fills up all of the brown mulch here, and I think it's really sweet with the petunias as a combination and also with the cosmos. Look at these delicate, cute little blooms. Aren't they just glorious? They really came with a lot of growth. These were all those cosmos that I grew from seed. And then also the grass that I grew from seed here. And then here are the snapdragons that I planted earlier on with you. They are about to flower. So I'm really excited about this entire area. But obviously I want to plant hydrangeas today with you. And this is bound to happen here on the very last layer of the slope. You already see one standing there. So what I want to do is take you with me to the last layer of the slope now and just show you the situation there. We are standing on the last layer of the slope now, and just in front of us there is this basket weave fence section that I did with you in one of my winter videos. And if I swing with you to the right, so this is west facing, this is where the entire landscape opens up into the farmland. Always a beautiful sight, and especially this year around because our neighbor, he grows peas and they are so beautiful and delicate with nice white blooms. So definitely a crop that makes me very happy. And this is exactly the area where I want to plant with you today. So to the left, there is still more landscape fabric, and then to the right, there is a dead hedge. This is something that I showed you in one of my very earliest videos on how to do. This is an ongoing process. Whenever you have like cuttings from your garden, you could create something like this. It's very good for wildlife and I really enjoy it. And also I think it's just a nice way on how to fence your property if you really have this very naturalistic kind of countryside look to it. But just in front of us, this is where I want to start planting two hydrangeas. And my idea in general for this area was, since it is more partly shaded, we are now in the early afternoon and just the first hydrangea already is exposed to the sun, but they will never get the sun of lunchtime, which is ideal for these kind of hydrangeas. I want to put an entire drift of blue and purple hydrangeas here. But before I do that, I just want to test with 2 varieties how they perform. Do they thrive here? Are they going to be happy? How's it going to look next year? Because otherwise I'm going to put 12 plants in here and they just fade out, which would be really a shame. So these come with a label. I'm so happy about that because many times when I buy something, I can never show you really what I'm buying. They are called Fabolo Blue, and this is how they will look. So really sky blue, and the first blooms are already open. And you can see that they are literally wonderful sky blue. So the center, when they just open, they are more on a chartreuse yellow side. And as they age, they open to a beautiful, really pale light blue color. Absolutely wonderful. So this is what really excites me about hydrangeas, and I hope that I can keep this process going. The next one will be just over there, and that is a brilliant color, I think. The light pale blue one, obviously, this is something that shines from the distance. Well, this one here, I think has a complete different beauty. It's very like dark, sinister, almost velvety, dark, rich purple. Again, the blooms in the center are really chartreuse now, and as they completely open, you have the sky blue center, and then they age to the really wonderful dark, rich purple. Again with a label, so this variety is called Amor or Amor. And according to the label, this is how they will look when they're fully open. So I can't wait for them. I think they're just so beautiful. What I want to do now is just give you some information about these hydrangeas and how to plant them to make sure that they will come back with blue flowers next year again. These are Hydrangea macrophylla, and just in case if you are a complete newbie to growing hydrangeas in your garden, just based on my own experience, I would heavily recommend you try out Hydrangea paniculata first, especially limelight, because they are not as fuzzy as these are, and they can cope better with difficult situations. Like, I have very well drained sandy soil, especially in the upper garden on top of the dike. I don't have anything on irrigation, and the paniculata varieties, they are very reliable and they never disappoint me. So just as a little hint of advice there, but still I'm really intrigued to introduce these to the garden. So for those of you who watch all of my videos, you know that I was planting proven winners, Strong Annabelle, 2 of them in the upper garden, and I'm quite intrigued to see the difference of like growing macrophylla type varieties in the upper garden versus down here. They are both in a very comparable situation in terms of soil and in terms of light. So they both grow more in partly shade, which is, from my experience, perfect and ideal for those kind of hydrangeas. According to label, they thrive in partly shade to full sun, but it is always best, I think, when they are protected from the full sun during the lunch hours. So at noontime, they really are protected from the trees. In my back here, there are 3 full-grown big trees, and they provide enough shadow here. So just in the afternoon, they will be exposed to sun, but they should be just perfect. The interesting thing is that here we are literally like on landscape level now, suddenly on the last layer of the slope. So on top of the dike, obviously, it is so elevated that having sandy soil anyways, it is sometimes more dry to what it is down here. And I think that this might work out extremely well for these kind of hydrangeas. In terms of height, that is a kind of a funny thing. The labels, they had like, I think 10 different varieties in the garden center, and they all said 60 centimeters to 1 meter. But I quickly Googled, and apparently they might grow up to 1 meter in height, and they can grow between 80 centimeters and 1 meter in width. But this is just after 5 to 10 years when they are in the ground. So let's see, I'm already happy if they look nice after 1 year in the ground. They are really nice in terms of their foliage, but they drop the foliage in winter, and then you also need to prune them. So in winter time, I will do a video on how to prune these type of hydrangeas as well. I told you that sometimes you go to the garden center and you buy these really beautiful blue hydrangeas and you put them in the ground and they look wonderful for the first year, and when they come back next year, suddenly you're like, what happened? My hydrangea is pink now, it was blue last year. And there is a quite simple reason for it, because these kind of hydrangeas, they produce their blue flowers when they sit in acidic soil. I have neutral garden soil here, which means if I put them, especially this one here, the Fabolo Blue, into the ground next year, this one will have pink blooms. I can guarantee that. So if you happen to have neutral soil or alkaline soil, you definitely need to amend something. The first thing that you can do is you can plant them, and you can buy soil acidifier. That comes kind of like in pellets, and what you do is you sprinkle it around it. You do not sprinkle it like just here next to the stem, because these roots grow outwards. So you need to sprinkle it really just like outwards in a ring around it, because what happens is that these kind of like pellets, they react with rainwater, they break down, and then the roots take all of this acidity into the plant, and then they produce blue flowers. The second thing that you can do, and this what I will do, is I'm really going to dig a big planting hole, and then I come in with special soil, which I just bought in the garden center. Whoa, heavy. So I've got 4 of these bags, 2 for each hydrangea. This is special hydrangea soil, and you can already see on the back a blue flower on it. So this is where you know a guarantee, if you put a lot of this in your planting hole, that next year they should come back definitely with blue flowers. There is a very simple way on how to test what kind of soil condition you have in your garden. So you can just go to your local garden center and ask for a kit on how to test the pH level of your garden. I'm definitely having neutral soil here. I've done it before, so I know that. These kind of hydrangeas, if you want to keep them in a blue, you should have a pH level of -4.5 or less in your garden. So if you have that, then you don't need to do anything to your soil. Then you have perfect soil, which is amazing to grow these kind of hydrangeas. If you don't have that acidity level in your soil, you should really come in and just amend the soil. Otherwise, you will have pink hydrangeas. But if you love pink hydrangeas, you can just buy those and they'd be very happy, obviously. So what I will do now is really plant good, decent sized big planting holes, put the fresh soil in there, and then plant these together with you. The first plant is in the ground, so let's put the second one in. And I think you could see quite well what I did. I really took out a lot of the native soil, and then I came in with a special soil for the hydrangeas, and just looking at it and feeling it, it reminded me a lot of like leaf compost, and this is exactly what I have in the garden here as well. I have a compost heap that is only dedicated to leaves, and this is ideal for hydrangeas. So I think next year I could just start taking half of it out and just dig it under the soil here and make these hydrangeas very happy with that. So what I will do now is just take this one out of its container. So I already prepared the entire area here. And to be fair, normally I always check the plants in the garden center and take them out of the container to see how the root system looks. Here there isn't a big root system, so I was definitely very mesmerized by these blooms. Still, I think this is bound to work. So all I do now is take the rest of the soil and put it in its planting hole and plant it dead level. Make sure that they do not sit idle, because these hydrangeas produce shallow roots, and that basically means that the roots start growing outwards. So when you prepare the hole, make sure that you do not prepare a hole that is very narrow and deep. You want to have a hole that has a quite good, decent size, so that these roots can grow outwards, and outwards they find exactly that soil condition that they love to thrive in. Keep it moistured. I'm going to water them in tonight because it's still too warm. It's way too hot. They're exposed to sun. The entire soil from the bag was nice and moist, so that was good. But still, I'm going to come in and soak these completely, and then I have an eye on them for the next 2-3 weeks just to see how they perform. But I think it will be really beautiful here. So all I'm going to do now is give you one last look at the situation. But to be fair, they are very small plants. You can see it already here. But I think once they come to bloom, they will still be so beautiful in this area here. I just love that this entire area starts to fill up with beautiful plants as well now. And I think that this is an amazing start, obviously. They are so pretty, and I can't wait for them to grow in. Like, if they really grow up to 1 meter in height, that would be ideal. But even if it's just like 60 centimeters, that would already be nice. It said on the label 60 centimeters to 1 meter. So let's see how much I can expect. Now they're pretty much like maybe 30 centimeters at most. So I can't even see them sitting from the bench up there, which is a little sad, but next year. And then if we continue walking, here is some Bistorta, by the way, that I just took from the upper garden, where I exchanged them to another variety. So let's see how long they're going to stay here. That was just like a way on how I can park them. And then the other hydrangea. Oh, beautiful. I love this color so much. Can't wait to give you updates on how they will perform throughout the entire year, and especially next year. That's it for today's video, and I hope that you could take some good, valid information out of today's video, just in case if you were always wondering why the hydrangeas that you bought as blue hydrangeas in the garden centre suddenly turned out to be pink. And to be fair, this is exactly what happened to me a couple of years ago. And only then I did some research and kind of realized, oh, that is a situation. Because I also remembered growing up as a child in the north of Germany. My parents had a big garden, so did the neighbors, and they always had blue hydrangeas in the garden. And those neighbors, they always convinced me that they had the magic blue powder to make the hydrangeas flower blue, and they told me that there was ink in there. Obviously, that is not a thing. I'm kind of questioning now if they believe the story themselves, what they had was soil acidifier, and however it was called, it worked brilliantly. So keep your fingers crossed that whatever I did today is going to work out and that these hydrangeas will be very happy there, because I think that this will be a really wonderful situation down there if it's going to work out and I could just really put more and more hydrangeas in there. Such a wonderful day for planting there. It really feels like summer has arrived. Also in the garden shed is like a finished sauna. I put all of my stuff back in there and I was like, oh, can't breathe in there. So I think I'm just going to call it a day, enjoy the rest of the day. And in winter time, you always saw me here with a hot cup of tea. So now I'm just going to go inside and make myself a nice iced coffee. So thank you so much for watching today's video. It was lovely having you in my garden, and I would honestly love to welcome you in my garden very soon again. Take care, guys. Bye.